Now that you have mastered the secondary and tertiary colors made with the primaries, the red, the yellow, and the blue, now we get to use our blacks and our whites, and we'll talk about the neutral colors that are black, white, and brown. And of course we don't have brown, so I need to show you how to create it. Now, in order to create brown, we can just take a look at our color wheels here. And anytime you mix two colors that are complementary, meaning they're completely opposite across from the color wheel, like blue and orange, you will get brown, or yellow and violet, you will get brown, or even yellow, green, and red, violet, you will get brown. Now, the browns will be a little bit different anytime in any of these combinations, and I'm going to show you sort of three basic combinations where you do orange and blue, yellow and violet, and red and green, and they'll each kind of come up with a little bit different brown. So you'll have three sort of to choose from by the time you're done. And of course, in your landscapes, I would think that most of you will probably be needing to create brown at some point. All right, so we got our brand new brushes, hooray. So I'm going to start with the orange and the blue. So to get my orange, I start with my yellow, and then I add a little red to it. Wash, dry, a little bit of red, too much. That might be a little bit red-orange, so I'm actually going to do the thing that I say not to and add a little bit more yellow. But if I'm just using a little bit of paint, so it's okay. All right, I've got my orange. Now I'm going to add my blue in a small amount, just like we always add our darker color to our lighter color. Just a little bit. And I'll go ahead and mix that up. And of course, the more we add, the darker, more blue it's going to get, but I think that's pretty good. And so, kind of there's my first brown right there. And I've got a little bit of water on my brush, so it's a little bit thin. Okay, so there's one. So I'm going to dry a little bit better this time. So now it is yellow plus violet. So actually it'd be violet plus yellow. So I'm starting out with my yellow, and I'm adding violet to it. So got my yellow. Actually, I don't need to start with my yellow, do I? Actually, yes, I do. So I've got a little yellow in here. And then I need to make my violets. And I don't need to make much because I'm just going to add a tiny bit. So I've got my red first, which of course is my lighter of the two colors. Really important to clean off that brush really well. And then I'm going to add a little bit of blue. And see, I always have a good problem. I always end up not even putting too much in, so then I have to go back, which is fine. It just takes you a little longer, and as you get better at it and you have more practice with it, then you can kind of figure out exactly how much to add every single time. And that still needs a little bit more. But just like when you're cooking, if you have to add a little bit more spice each time, it's better than messing up the whole recipe by adding way too much the first time. There we go. So I am going to go ahead and clean out my brush, even though I do need the violet, because I just want a little bit. Okay, I need a little bit more, so I'll add a little bit more. Now I didn't wash my brush out because I am going to go ahead and just mix these. Okay, that's not quite enough. I'm going to scoop the rest in there. There we go. Okay, now oddly enough, this actually looks almost identical to the last one, which in the years of doing this, I almost never have happened. So generally speaking, this will be a little bit more of a reddish brown. Okay, so it does have a little bit more red in it. And so finally, we've got our red and our green. Start with my red. Now this is kind of tricky because red and green are very similar in terms of value. So what's like, which one do I want to add? So I'm going to actually add my green to my red. So some yellow. Add a little bit more. And of course, we are washing out our brushes and drying them off very well because we're sharing these palettes. So we don't want someone dunking a brush in and totally mixing in the color up, because then we have to fix it. All right, so I got my green. And looking at that, I'm going to actually go with adding my red into my green. Now this one is different. This one ended up being more of a green brown. Okay, and I could have made it even more green had I added more red. Now if I added more red than that, now it's like a really reddish brown. Okay, so there's lots of variations that you can get in here depending on how much of these colors to mix. And just one last thing, of course, anytime you want to make a color lighter or darker, it's not always about adding black or white, but again, if I want to make a light blue, you always have to start with the white first. It's one of the biggest mistakes, easy mistakes everybody makes. And then add a tiny bit of blue to it, just a little teeny bit, to get my tint of my blue. Okay. And of course, the shades are the darker version, where I start with my color, and then I add a tiny bit of black to that color. So I see my blue, normal blue there, my light blue for my tint, and I'm going to add just a teeny weeny bit of black to that, and it almost went totally black, but it's my darker blue. I can actually add a little bit more blue back in there. So I have my sort of my navy blue here, which is almost kind of a cool looking gray. Okay, so tints, the color plus white, and then shades. So a little tiny bit of black. You can see it kind of went too much, and it went really too far. A tiny bit of black into your color.